You could have an extra, potentially 15 to 20 horsepower for free by doing some of these old school tricks. Hey guys, Todd with 306 Foxbody. We're going to talk about some old school performance tricks that are free that some guys did back in the day. Some of them had bigger gains than others, and some of them not so much. I did a recent little short YouTube short video as like 12 or 14 seconds about flipping the lid. And it was really cool to hear some of the comments, how guys were saying that, you know, back in the day, they remember doing that. I know one guy that I know, he said, boy, it would make that quadrajet howl when they flipped the lid. Some guys say it's stupid, it's not worth any horsepower. I believe it is. And in the video I said, yeah, the young people will never know the satisfaction of flipping the lid. And honestly, guys, no disrespect to young guys. I was a young guy once too. I wish I was still young. And there was a day where all of us didn't know a damn thing. You know, if you're an older guy like me, you know where this is coming from, but let's face it, not every young guy has a carbureted car. Some young guys commented on the video, they have some project vehicles, carbureted stuff, and I think that's totally awesome. I got an air cleaner assembly from I think my brother said it was from like a 66 Chevy with a 283 or a Pontiac or something. But check this out. This opening is about 1.75 inches inside diameter, maybe 1.5 inches actually. And it probably flows more air than you think, but it's certainly not a hell of a lot. And back in the day when you're cruising with your parents' Impella or LTD or Fairlane or whatever the heck you were driving, but you want to race your buddy, guys, flip the lid. One of the concerns in the short video I did, they said, well, that's kind of stupid. You're getting a whole bunch of dirt into the air cleaner. And in my little video, I forgot to wipe the dust off the top of the lid before I flipped it. So if you're going to flip your lid, make sure you wipe the dust off. Otherwise, you'll get in trouble with everybody on YouTube. You are still getting filtered air. Instead of the air hitting that little blocker on the end, now you're getting air all the way around here, and you've got more air available to the filter that could feed the carburetor. So it was a win-win situation. Honestly, this is probably off of a 2-barrel carburetor, but let me grab another one I have off of a 4-barrel. Here's a 4-barrel inlet, definitely much bigger, maybe 2 3/4 inches, definitely restrictive. So that's why, guys, flip the lid. As long as you had hood clearance, you're good to go. But guys are saying, well, that's stupid, you're getting a whole bunch of hot air. Then half the guys out there, in your opinion, that are running a carbureted car, or say a Holly Sniper fuel injection, or anything where it's like a throttle body CFI design or whatever, what have you, why is everybody running an open air filter element? If that's just such a terrible idea and terrible design, why are they running this? That's just such a common, popular design for any street car that has a carburetor, or like I said, modern fuel injection where you're using a throttle body assembly. Like, let's face it, you might have seen that video. Some guys strapped a tow truck to a chassis dyno, and the only thing they did was flip the lid. They've got 7 rear wheel horsepower. That's probably like about 9 or 9.5, 10 crank horsepower. And let's face it, every situation is different. I think on my 83 GT, my first car, I flipped the lid whenever I was going to race somebody because, you know, and I think a good idea was to keep the hood up, get it cool under the hood, make sure the engine was actually up to operating temperature, but keep your underhood temperatures low. flip the lid, pull up to the line, race the guy, and then I would flip it back for my everyday driving. So flipping the lid became that. And you know, there is some smarter designs out there. Like I said, the Thunderbolt had the air ducts going to the grill. There's lots of cars pull air from the inner fender aprons, like my 83 GT actually did. Cowl induction Camaros pulled it from the cowl, so that was a good idea. And there's lots of other ones out there that seem to work. If flipping the lid can give you 3 horsepower or 7 horsepower, it's free. That's the main thing. You could have an extra, potentially, 15 to 20 horsepower for free by doing some of these old school tricks. Let's go over a couple other things. I think, let's see, for free. If your oil is right up to the top of your crosshatch on your dipstick, and if you drain about a quart of oil out, or a liter of oil, or a liter and a half, and it gets it down to here, that could be enough to get you that extra 5 or 7 horsepower. There's less windage, there's less oil hitting the crankshaft as it goes around, and that could give you that 1/10 of a second that you've been looking for, or 1/2 a tenth. It's just that extra little bit. That's free horsepower. In fact, I think it was Engine Masters was doing a test, and one of the things they did is they drained oil out of the engine, and they drained more than they thought they would, and it kept making power. And actually, when the engine had the full operating level of oil, they noticed that they graphed the oil pressure, and they actually saw the oil pressure dropping off when the motor was full of oil, and it was dropping off not because the engine was being starved. It was dropping off because the oil was getting aerated, so it was getting kind of frothy and stuff like that. So that tells them there's too much oil.
The red line represents the stock pan with the reduced oil level in it, and the black line shows that we killed 22 horsepower with too much oil in the aftermarket pans. I bet the audience has no idea that too much oil kills 20 horsepower.
Another thing you do is set the timing. I know on my 83 GT, this is right out of the Ford manual, it said set the timing to 10 degrees before top dead center at 800 RPM. So even for a fuel-injected Foxbody or something, the big trick was to set it 12, 13 degrees. In some cases, you could get even higher. So by adding that 3 degrees or so to your ignition timing, you'll need a timing light, obviously. Man, that could give you 5 or 10 horsepower really easily. So every little bit helps.
Again, it's not a huge amount, but it all adds up.
You know, even back in the day, I remember the first thing you do on this car, for example. It obviously wasn't like this its whole life, but the first thing you do is pull the silencer out of the fender well. That was number 1. Number 2, we would bump up the timing to about 13 or 14 degrees with good fuel. Another thing you might do at the racetrack, okay, this is pretty simple. I'm just running my alternator and I'm just running my supercharger, but we used to get a short belt. You'd bypass your power steering and you're just running your alternator, and that's about it. So a short belt, you're having less, you're not running as many things, and that's more power to the rear wheels. Coming to fans. Some of these flex fans, these could actually pull lots of horsepower away from your motor because the blades are still fairly aggressive. An older steel, one of those 6 or 7 blade heavy steel fans, they'll even kill more power. A flex fan probably less, but honestly, electric fan's the way to go. That will totally give you more power. All right, here's one for the Foxbody and SN95 guys that I guess even the new Edge guys, well really anything with a mass airflow sensor. If you look inside, you can see those 2 little elements. They're exposed to the airflow. What happens is, in time, even if you're running a stock air filter, those little elements could get dirty. So then the computer isn't getting the proper signal. When the air goes over it, the computer says, well, I don't really feel much air coming in, so it really doesn't adjust the timing right or the fuel delivery properly. Anyways, a dirty mass airflow sensor can make your car just feel like a dog. In fact, my buddy Al has a 95 GT, and I almost thought his catalytic converters were getting plugged. Before he went to the muffler shop, because that's what I was suggesting, I said, let me check something. His airflow sensor was filthy. Actually, I made a video on that a couple of years ago. And back in the day, I had about an 88 5-liter LX hatchback, a blue one. It had a mass airflow sensor conversion. It had headers, 308 gears, there's a 5-speed, exhaust work, Cobra intake. Anyways, because of the oiled air filter, it got a residue on those little elements in there, and it just trapped, it caked with dust over time. And I raced my buddy Joel. He had a 95 GT, and car to car, he was beating me by about a length. And he might have had a couple things done to his car, but this LX should have been able to take him. And I just couldn't understand why this car was just like a dog. So my buddy Greg, he's got a 99 Ram Air Trans Am, and he says, have you checked the mass airflow sensor? He says, us F-body guys are checking that all the time. Well, it was caked. Then when I raced Joel again, I could be maybe a car length ahead of him. So there's a thing for free, your mass airflow sensor being dirty. Anyways, I thought I would go over flipping the lid. This open air filter element will just grab way more air than something like this, obviously. In that little short video I had, it kind of blew me away. There was over 1 million views in 19 days. That doesn't make me special or anything. I was blown away by it. You young guys, as you get older, you're going to find yourself reminiscing just like the guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And we remember the good old days just like you're going to remember the good old days. And I know when I go to a Cars and Coffee event, when I go to car shows, I am one of those guys poking under the hoods of the Honda Civics and the imports. And there's guys that do fabrication work, young guys that, man, their TIG welding is amazing and their fabrication skills are amazing. And you young guys are the ones that give guys like me ideas for cars like mine. So next time you're at a car show, if an old guy comes up and is poking around your car, he's probably genuinely interested to see what you're up to, because he may not understand it, or he may understand it very well. Hope everybody had a good Christmas and New Year's, and we will catch you in the next video. I hope to start working on that thing pretty soon too. Cheers.